So Gage said, I am new to this surrender process. Sometimes it seems when I practice not resisting negative emotions, I seem to get preoccupied with that negative emotion. It's like I just stay in that fear and it stays with me. Even when I go to sleep, these emotions just stay with me, almost to the point of engulfing me. It's like pent up energy is bursting out. And you'll see that the practice of acceptance will dissolve all of this. It will not only dissolve the intensity of the experience, but also the resistance which naturally arises as well. Right now, an emotion arises, and perhaps it's fear, perhaps it's some unpleasant sensation, perhaps some pain, and automatically, there's just some conditioning already labeling this is bad, this is uncomfortable, do something to get rid of it. So we do all sorts of things. We may distract ourselves mentally. We may like do whatever, something that have been habitually used to doing. Perhaps it's like eating a lot or watching a lot of TV or just drinking or whatever it is, or just like even going to exercise or something like that. So we need something to avoid or cope with this. So something's already resisting that just because it has a preconceived notion of this is unpleasant and I should not be feeling this way. And so this is where you're invited to and you're welcome to explore that life doesn't need to be all roses and pleasant and pleasurable experiences. In the sea of impermanent changing experience, there is good and bad, pleasant and unpleasant. And as long as we are constantly trying to attach ourselves to the pleasant and avoid the unpleasant, we will always be in conflict. And this is where acceptance or letting go comes in, right? Where you are being asked to observe and feel fully the pleasant and the unpleasant with an unbiased, all accepting, all allowing eye of awareness, of seeing. So you're being asked to observe the feeling, the sensation, and feel the feeling, not running away from it, not avoiding it, not trying to turn it into something else, not thinking about the feeling, but actually feeling the feeling, experiencing the feeling, observing the feeling, the sensation. And see that even the great fear that we run away from is nothing other than a sensation, along with some story and thoughts. This is where you'll allow yourself to become subtle in your uh, even your control over the attention, bringing the attention away from just the story which energizes the fear, away from the thoughts, interpreting, judging, all that, bringing the attention to just the experience of the fear itself. And so sometimes we practice this, and then there's a reaction to that observing, right? Perhaps it gets more intense, or or mind throws up some sort of resistance, and there again we get stuck. And so you're asked to not only observe the fear, but also, please see this in your experience, that even the reaction that arises to the fear, the entanglement, you say, right? Like you get preoccupied with that. See that even that is also observed. Perhaps the mind gets involved again in some way. That is also observed. So just simply again, don't identify with the reaction to the fear itself. See and observe even the response. So observe the fear and recognize that even this reaction to the fear is also observed. It is by what? The awareness, the knowing. And so simply observe. Your job here is to simply observe. Because what this will do is right now there's just a habit of becoming what I am observing. There's just I you don't consciously think this, but it's like I am this fear. I am this sensation. I am this conflict. I am this thought. And so observing, which seems like a passive thing to do, right? It is the greatest transformational factor because it dissolves first and foremost the story around the fear and the emotion, which further perpetuates it usually. It dissolves the conflict, the resistance, and it allows you to wake up to one simple fact that the pleasant and unpleasant are equally valid and experienceable. And this inwardly changes you entirely because now life stops being just a chase for the pleasant and an avoiding of the unpleasant. So you're no longer just a puppet caught between good and bad, positive and negative, pleasant and unpleasant. You are equally open and allowing of all experience, no longer in conflict. You're learning to see from your true view rather than from a thought, right? An emotion arises and you identify with this thought that says this is good or bad. Now you're learning to see from the true view in which even the thoughts and the emotions arise and subside. And here there is no conflict. And only such, this one is able to be an experience, good or bad, yet not suffer. So it's a transcending of the pleasant and unpleasant. It's a freedom from resistance. It is a freedom from clinging. It you finally reinvigorate the flow. Life is always flowing, right? The experience is always flowing. It is only this thought which is trying to cling here and resist there. Here we get caught up in this limited identity we suffer. This is on behalf of which a lot of the fear and the emotions even happen. So when this one itself is going out of commission, the fear and the anxiety automatically start to vanish too. And now you have a greater subtlety with which you flow with life. Life is allowed to be a changing experience. Now, uncertainty, rather than a cause for fear, it is a cause for joy, excitement, adventure, creativity, spontaneity. So life experientially itself becomes, it reflects back to this inward pleasantness, peace, happiness. The dissolving of inner conflict leads to a dissolving of external conflict. And it all starts with just the simple observing. Observe even the greatest of pain, the greatest of fear, the greatest of anxiousness, and see that all is experienceable. For some reason, we feel like our fear is not experienceable, so I must avoid it and run away from it. It is not true. The more we run away from it, the bigger the fear gets. It's almost like a monster that doesn't exist. Once you start to observe it, you start to see that there's nothing to be scared of. The scenario itself stops being so scary because it's so funny because the scenario that you're scared of is fueled by the sensation and the scenario itself is fueling the sensation. So just by observing the sensation, which is an actuality of experience, the story is just you thinking about the experience that is currently here. So it's secondary. So the sensation which has arisen or already arose, you observe it. Not only weakens the sensation, doesn't give it any sense of identity, of truth, but it also just weakens the story along with it. It dissolves any sort of mental pattern or trauma that you have associated with it. It is a complete freedom from this cycle of dysfunction. It is in a almost like a permission slip to yourself to be as you are, rather than constantly mixing yourself with limited objects of experience. Being as you are, allowing experience to be as it is. That is what we call happiness. Happiness is not a thing gained by having this experience. Happiness lies in the total allowance of experience as it is. Think about it. When are you most happy? When you are fully open and allowing to what is happening to you right now. Say, like, you won the lottery right now. Would you not be so open to that experience? You'd be a big yes to that experience. You believe that the reason for your happiness is because you're winning this object, becoming a bigger person. But the real reason for the happiness is not actually the object. The object just becomes a permission slip that you give to yourself to become, to say yes, to fully embrace life. So see that when you, regardless of what the experience is, you have this capacity to be that open yes. You don't have to, you know, want the experience. It is just an allowing of experience. It's not a preference like, oh, now I'm going to start preferring fear and this, and so I could be happy. No, don't complicate that. It is just it is just an open allowing that this pain is equally valid an experience, and it has just the right to be here, just as my happiness did. I wasn't questioning all this when happiness was here, when pleasantness was here. Now the pain and fear has arisen. Now I'm questioning all this. Now I'm thinking so many bad things about my life. This is all dysfunction. Be free of it. It is a waste of energy, not worth an ounce of your attention. See from the eye of the eye of awareness, in which all is equally allowed. There's an equal awareness of happiness, just as there's an equal awareness of sadness. And in that, there is a freedom from conflict. And regardless of the nature of your experience, there is a general harmony. So many subtle things that you will come to know yourself with the simple practice of acceptance. And then you will see that acceptance is not a practice, it is your very nature. The allowance, the acceptance is your very nature, the awareness. Acceptance, awareness, it's almost synonyms. Very good. Glad that helped, Gage. What else? What other questions do we have for today? See, perhaps again right now, your mind is perhaps happy about what is being said, or perhaps it's in some contemplation about what is being said. Just drop all of it. See how quickly we fall into that. How quickly we begin to just, again, trying to get somewhere, interpret, understand, grasp. There's an awareness of it. It's just thoughts. What is aware? In what do these thoughts appear? See how this question always points you away from the thought that is known to the very knowing of the thought. In this very turning of attention, the thought ceases to be relevant and just fades away on its own. Once again, plunging you into the silence of your true essential nature.